into China-US trade talks. The big question is who's going to win, who's going to lose? And it's a really important question that people are asking right now. We've got Kristina Hooper, the Chief Global Market Strategist at Invesco, joining me now. Thank you so much. And I know that you're thinking about the fact that there are not going to be any winners here. I know that there's a kind of sentiment that the US always wins these kind of trade wars, but you're looking at it from a different perspective. Take us through it.
Absolutely, because we are a global economy. If we go back even to the early 1960s, we had such a small percentage of global GDP that could be attributed to international trade, less than 25%. Today, that number is close to 60%. So we all need to be winners in a global economy. And that's why I worry that while China looks like it's feeling a lot of pain right now, the U.S. is likely to experience similar pain, maybe not as much damage, but this is going to end up being like the War of the Roses. If you remember, both male lines were decimated as a result. There are no winners.
Okay, so, I mean, the whole point of trade is the fact that people want fair trade. And if one country is producing products that, your country is producing, that means that you could possibly kill the local industry by importing cheaper goods. And that's kind of the worry, right? And that's what a lot of countries complain about. How do you ensure that you balance things out? I mean, is there such a thing as fair trade?
Well, there's a little organization called the World Trade Organization, and so that has helped make strides towards fairer trade in terms of lowering overall tariffs over the course of its existence since 1995. But fair trade is relative, and so some economies that are emerging economies usually get a pass in terms of having more protectionist policies than larger developed economies.
Okay, does the U.S. have a leg to stand on in terms of trying to protect its local economy and its local businesses? Because this is what President Trump is keep on, talking about, saying we've got to bring jobs back to the U.S. and we should be producing more for our own economy.
Well, U.S. consumers benefit a lot from global trade because we're bringing in cheaper items. And so there's always a trade-off when you talk about global trade. The bigger issues, of course, are intellectual property, access to markets in China. And those are the ones where the U.S. really has a strong leg to stand on. However, they probably would be much better off pursuing this through the WTO.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm going to flip this on its head. We know that China is quite aggressive in terms of its trade. We know that a lot of emerging markets try and enforce tariffs when it comes to Chinese goods. But at the same time, China is such a powerhouse as well. It can produce everything cheaper and better and more efficiently. What does China need to do to change perceptions in terms of the way it conducts trade globally?
I think, again, it's about intellectual property. It's about access to markets. There's nothing wrong with being good at producing low-cost items. That's essentially the benefits of comparative advantage. But it's a lot about...
A lot of people can do it at the rate that China is doing things, especially when it comes to textile and technology.
That's correct. I think for China, it has to be about easing its rules around access to markets, essentially bolstering its property, its intellectual property protections. Those are the key issues that I think if you talk to most companies, major companies around the world, those are the ones that they're focused on as opposed to the balance of trade, which is really not an important issue.
Okay, I know we're not looking at any winners coming through here, but you are also talking about what China can do to fight back in a sense. What ammunition, what weapons does it have in its pockets to be able to fight a powerhouse like the U.S.?
Well, it's an apples to oranges comparison when you look at the U.S. versus China, because China has a president for life. So he doesn't have to worry about elections in less than 2 years.
Very true.
And also in China, you have a president who can immediately trigger an increase in domestic spending, that it can essentially focus on stimulus to counter any damage created by a trade war. Of course, our president needs the approval of Congress, which is going to be getting a bit harder now that the House of Representatives has gone Democratic. So it's hard for the U.S. to immediately implement domestic stimulus to counter any damage created by trade wars. Then beyond that, of course, there is this nuclear option that China has. It owns a lot of U.S. treasuries at a time when the U.S. is running larger deficits and is issuing more debt. And so China could start to sell some of the treasuries.
And it has been selling over the last few months if you look at how many they've been holding. I mean, it's actually been offloading quite significant amounts.
Exactly. And it could get a lot more significant, or China could decide not to purchase any more treasuries, and that would essentially, all else being equal, raise U.S. borrowing costs.
And that's been such an interesting point, because for many years now we say that China has actually got the upper hand because it's been holding so many U.S. treasuries. And in fact, over the financial crisis, we always said China is now the new powerhouse because of that card that they have. Do you think Xi Jinping will pull that card out of his pocket? What do you think is going to happen come Monday? Do you think that we're going to see them saying, well, listen, this is what we have on you?
Well, I assume China will speak softly and carry a big stick. We all know China has that big stick. So I don't know if the president has to specifically articulate that as a threat, but it is hanging over the U.S. like a sword of Damocles.
All right, Kristina, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.